On August 18th, 1973, a group of 5 friends ran afoul of a cannibalistic family of serial predators. The video which you are about to see is some interesting facts about the movie in which tragedy befell a group of 5 youths, in particular Sally Hardesty and her invalid brother Franklin. It is all the more tragic in that they were young, but had they lived very, very long lives, they could not have expected, nor would they have wished to see as much of the mad and macabre as they were to see on that day. For them, an idyllic summer afternoon drive became a nightmare. The events of that day would lead to the discovery of one of the most bizarre crimes in the annals of American history, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Welcome, Hounds. It's Tony here.
And Amy.
With Gorehounds of Horror, and I gotta say, it's been a while.
It has.
Just over a year.
Year and 6 months, I believe.
And we took a break from the group to handle some personal business.
Like moving, doing some remodeling, burying a few bodies.
But fear not, Hounds, we are back.
But aside from having a brand new video, we also still have a bunch of free shit to give away.
This means you should watch until the end of the video to get more details on how to get your grubby little sausage fingers on some horrifyingly sick and sweet horror merch. You can win things like DVDs, Blu-rays, t-shirts.
Haha, whoa. Hold on.
What?
Save it for the end. We have a video to do.
You are very right. So without further ado, let's take a look at some interesting facts about the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. If you frequent the Gorehounds of Horror Facebook group, which we strongly recommend you check out,
look us up on Facebook, link in the description.
You'd know that Leatherface, the man behind your face, is my favorite horror slasher of all time.
It's true, you are a huge Leatherface fan.
I am, even if some of his outings were a bit strange. Let's just say that.
It was inspired by a Christmas shopping crowd.
When it comes down to the Christmas holiday season, people generally go through a course of emotions.
Stress, excitement, fatigue.
And there's the partying and drinking.
Decreasing bank balances, brand new toys to set up. Oh, and probably the best part, the food.
The food is my favorite part.
As it is mine.
But when you combine those things, it could have some adverse effects on the mind.
For instance, it could inspire you to create a wholesome story about 2 siblings and 3 other friends who load into a 1972 Ford Econoline club wagon and road trip it to Texas to visit their grandfather's grave, only to fall prey to a family of cannibalistic psychopaths.
Okay, that's oddly specific.
But it's true. At least it was for Tobe Hooper.
The film nearly traumatized actress Marilyn Burns.
Marilyn Burns, who played Sally Hardesty, was able to limp her way to becoming the first final girl to survive a playdate with the disturbing and cannibalistic Sawyer family.
In an interview, Marilyn stated that the cast was kept separate from Leatherface, Nubbins, Drayton, and Grandpa to build suspense and add a layer of fear for the actors to use as inspiration. She stated,
"I thought you were going to really hurt me. You couldn't see through your stupid mask."
The creative team behind the It remake mentioned how they limited the cast contact with Pennywise to keep the kids from getting used to seeing the dancing clown.
Needless to say, that's only the tip of the iceberg for what else happened to her while filming. The scene in which Sally's finger is cut so that her blood can be fed to Grandpa was supposed to rely on a very simple special effect. The knife blade used in the scene was dulled by a piece of tape that also held a rubber tube attached to a bulb full of fake blood concealed in Gunnar Hansen's palm. As he dragged the knife across Burns' finger, Hansen was supposed to squeeze the bulb and pump the blood out to simulate the cut, but the tube kept clogging up take after take.
This was during the 27-hour shooting marathon.
Frustrated and exhausted, Hansen ultimately stripped the tape off the knife when no one was looking and cut Burns for real. He stated,
"At this point, I was just so crazy I wanted to get the film over with."
And if that wasn't enough, even though Tobe Hooper used a stunt double for Sally's leap through the window in the scene where she is trying to escape Leatherface, Marilyn Burns actually hurt herself when they shot the following scene of her falling to the ground.
She was also reported to have cut herself onto branches during the scenes where Leatherface chased her through the underbrush, so a lot of the blood that you see on her body and clothes is real.
Leatherface is allegedly based on a real person Tobe Hooper knew.
It's pretty obvious that Leatherface, the chainsaw-wielding maniac who would go down in history as one of horror cinema's greatest villains, throws off some serious Ed Gein vibes.
Edward Theodore Gein was born August 27, 1906, and died on July 26, 1984. Ed Gein, also known as the Butcher of Plainfield, or the Plainfield Ghoul, was an American convicted murderer and body snatcher. Gein's crimes, committed around his hometown of Plainfield, Wisconsin, gathered widespread notoriety in 1957 after authorities discovered he had exhumed corpses from local graveyards and fashioned trophies and keepsakes from their bones and skin.
But this real-life serial killer wasn't the only inspiration that Hooper had when creating this iconic character.
Before I came up with the chainsaw, the story had trolls under a bridge. We changed that to the character who eventually became Leatherface. The idea actually came from a doctor I knew. I remembered that he'd once told me the story about how, when he was a pre-med student, the class was studying cadavers. And he went into the morgue and skinned a cadaver and made a mask for Halloween. We decided Leatherface would have a different human skin mask to fit each of his moods.
After the concept for the character was finally conceived, it was time for Gunnar Hansen to get to work bringing him to life. With no real dialogue written into the script for the lumberjack enthusiast, aside from a gibberish scene that was eventually cut out of the film, Hansen had to drive his character and his facial expressions throughout the guise of a mask.
When Hooper wanted the character to squeal like a pig, Hansen went out to a farm and studied the pigs. To further capture the mental instability of the character, he also went to a mental hospital in Austin and studied the movements of the patients there, which he then incorporated into the final performance of what we all know today as the original Leatherface.
The movie was banned in multiple countries.
Initially, the film was banned in many countries all over the globe.
Brazil, France, Norway, Finland, Germany, Australia, Great Britain, Sweden, Iceland, and Singapore have all had some sort of ban on the first Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie.
Most of the bans have been lifted and the movie has been released with proper ratings. In some places, an edited version is available.
There's also a report about 2 theaters in Ottawa, Canada that were advised by local police to withdraw the film or face morality charges.
Kind of mind-blowing when you think about how tame the first entry in the series was compared to the rest. And to think that Hooper wanted a PG rating from the very beginning and ended up having his film banned in multiple countries.
The cast shared a love-hate relationship with each other.
Gunnar Hansen had the pleasure of donning the mantle of the original Leatherface, but he was also unfortunately cursed in the sense that he had to work every day in triple-degree heat while wearing a wool costume.
The highest documented temperature during the shoot was 115 degrees, and that was outside, so inside the house was probably a lot hotter. Gunnar was left smelling rather ripe, and that led to the rest of the cast and crew avoiding him when it was time to break for lunch. He stated,
During the filming, none of them would talk to me or be anywhere near me until they were dead.
There was also a character technique involved where the killer was kept separate from the rest of the actors, at least until they had met their fate.
So in scenes like the one where Jerry, played by Alan Danziger, walks in on the man in a dead skin mask and finds his sadistic slaughter room for the very first time, the harrowing scream he lets out is genuine, since it would also be the first time he had seen Hansen in a full Leatherface getup.
Another bit of on-set drama was caused by Paul Partain, the actor who played Franklin. It's pretty easy to see that he wasn't very popular on screen, and this carried over when the camera was off as well. This was due to Partain taking a very method approach to his work and staying in character at all times.
I was a young inexperienced actor who didn't realize that it wasn't like theater and you didn't have to stay in character all the time. When I first read the part, I could see that nobody wanted this guy to be there. It just hit me that he was whiny.
It's documented that he and Burns stopped speaking to each other between takes, and Hansen later stated himself that Franklin was the only character he was actually happy to kill off.
Not only was the Saw family, the Saw was also real. Mostly.
The saw in the film was still a real functioning chainsaw, even though its teeth were removed for some shots.
In one scene in particular, where Leatherface starts carving up Kirk's body, the blade of the saw was just inches from actor William Bale's head. To make matters worse, Hooper and Daniel Pearl, the film's cinematographer, had to carefully maneuver around Hansen to shoot the film's final moments, while the chainsaw-wielding maniac spun around in circles with his saw.
During the chase scene in which Leatherface pursues Sally through the woods, Hansen slipped and tossed the saw blindly into the night. With no idea where the saw would land, Gunnar braced for impact, curled up, and waited for the worst. Thankfully, the saw fell inches from him instead of directly on him.
Fun fact, the saw's model is a Poulon 245A. In the movie, they used black tape to cover up the logo to avoid a possible lawsuit.
Head Cheese, starring somebody not named Gunnar Hansen.
The original title for the movie was Head Cheese. And if you've seen the movie, then you're sure to recall the iconic scene where the delicious meat jelly is referenced.
You can have dinner with us. You like head cheese? My brother makes it real good. You like it?
Shortly after, the name was changed to the menacing working title of Leatherface, and even Stalking Leatherface. At one point, the film was even called Scum of the Earth.
They changed it to the Scum of the Earth, which again I wasn't too happy about being. Hi, Daddy, I'm in the scum of the earth today. Well, you figure. So I'm glad they settled on another title.
About a week before shooting was set to begin, the film would finally don the title we all know today.
The name, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre, was actually created by the head of the then Texas Film Commission, Warren Scarron, who helped get the film financed.
When Gunnar had first heard that the film was being made, he was told he'd be great for the role, but that it had sadly already been cast.
2 weeks after that, Hansen received a call stating,
"The guy who was hired as the killer is holed up drunk in a motel and won't come out. There's a lot of bad karma surrounding this movie and he's quitting."
So Hansen called up Bob Burns and told him he was interested.
Gunnar stood 6'4" and weighed over 300 pounds, easily winning him the role for Hooper on sight, simply because he filled the doorway.
Was it actually based on a true story?
Was TCM actually based on a true story? The film was marketed that way, and generations of horror fans believe,
Some still do,
that it was in fact real. Gunnar himself backs this theory up, saying people would not believe him when he said that no such chainsaw crimes ever happened in the state of Texas. People would say something like,
No, they happened. My cousin worked on death row over there in Huntsville and saw Leatherface himself get that chair.
but this is understandable because the film was falsely marketed as based on a true story.
Folks all over the world continued to believe it was real when the proof was right in the movie the entire time. It was filmed from July 15th to August 14th, 1973, while the opening narrative claims that the real events took place on the 18th of August in 1973, thus making it impossible for the film to be based on actual events, since those actual events haven't even happened at the time of filming.
Wonder who that could be.
Don't worry, dear, I'll take care of it.
Thanks, babe. While you figure out who's at the door, I'm going to get started with the Speed Kill segment. Mr. Gore, would you explain this part of our show, please?
As you wish, my queen. Maggots and ghouls, and everything in between. Welcome to Speed Kills. This portion of our show has our horrendous hosts rapidly firing off a list of facts based on the film. They will have 120 seconds before the timer ends. Once the king has returned, I'll start the clock.
Alright, I'm back.
Who was at the door?
Just somebody that wants to talk to us about our car's extended warranty program.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah, that will give us something to do after the show. But we better hurry. I don't want to keep him tied up too long.
Yes. I agree. Mr. Gore, whenever you're ready.
Yes, my queen. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 1974. Speed kills. 2 minutes on the clock. And begin.
The actress who played Pam was actually hurt when she was hung up on the meat hook. The nylon cord that went between her legs ended up causing her a great deal of pain.
The movie wasn't released in Australia until the early 1980s and was initially banned in Britain because it had the word chainsaw in the title.
The film was shot in chronological order.
Leatherface's fake teeth were made especially for Gunnar by his dentist.
There apparently was a family that was living in the Sawyer house in the latter half of the movie.
They used a real human skeleton from India because it was far cheaper than a plastic one.
To achieve the final shot of the film where Hansen gets cut by the saw, he wore a metal plate over his leg covered with a piece of meat and a blood bag.
The soundtrack contains the sounds that animals would hear inside a slaughterhouse.
Entertainment Weekly magazine voted this the second scariest film ever made, behind The Exorcist.
The Ramones recorded a song about the movie titled Chainsaw.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. They took my baby away from me.
The film's main protagonist served as inspiration as a wrestling gimmick commonly referred to as super leather.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre has been described as the ultimate pro-vegetarian film due to its animal rights themes.
The movie was made on a budget of less than $300,000, but to this day has pulled in more than $30 million.
Leatherface served as the inspiration behind a Geico insurance commercial.
Out of the attic.
No, in the basement. Why can't we just get in the running car?
Are you crazy? Let's hide behind the chainsaws.
Smart. Yeah, okay.
If you're in a horror movie, you make poor decisions. That's what you do.
Shh, I'm being quiet. Breathing on.
The film's gas station became a bed and breakfast called the Texas Chainsaw Massacre's Last Chance Gas Station. They serve barbecue with an overnight cabin stay, complete with chainsaw alarm clocks to ensure you do not oversleep. Only one person is actually killed by the chainsaw. And the only real chainsaw damage seen on screen is the Leatherface himself.
I think that's our cue.
Yeah, I think you're... Oh, hang on. The prizes we mentioned at the beginning of the video.
Oh, yes, of course. Once we hit 500 subs, we will be choosing a few active subscribers.
By active, we mean you must like, subscribe, and turn on that little bell thing, and be sure to comment on our video.
And that's it. You're entered. Absolutely no cost to you.
If you're an active member of our Facebook community and like all of our videos, your chances of winning somehow increase.
So what are you waiting for?
We also have a book available on Amazon called Gorehounds of Horror Ultimate Zombie Survival Guide. Link in the description.
We recommend you pick up the ebook version, although we do have a paperback version available.
Okay, I think our new friend's getting restless.
I think you're right. You go ahead and get ready. I'll start the outro.
Sounds like a plan. Till next time.
For Gorehounds of Horror, that was Tony and I'm Amy. Stay horrible and stay safe. But what do you want to do about him?
You know, all that talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre kinda made me hungry.
Odd. But I agree. What you thinking? Head cheese?
Chili?
Both sound good to me.